If a typhoon hits Luzon, can a property in Mindanao claim for typhoon damages? We'll answer that question and a couple of other more today. What is up? You're watching Tito Talks non-life insurance discussions with me, Miguel, your favorite Tito who loves to make non-life insurance topics easier to understand for both agents and clients. Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Thank you so much for joining us today. Glad to have you guys on board. As always, we're here to deliver you non-life insurance topics to help you understand your policies better. Now, as promised in the intro, we're going to be talking about typhoon covers, what it can do, what it cannot do, and some very interesting facts about it, which should be a very interesting discussion. Also, don't forget to watch the full length of the video, because at the end, we'll be giving you our word for the day. This one's pretty interesting. I hope you like it as well. But before we get into the content, it's very important that we define our terms first. What do we mean when we say typhoon? Well, for starters, we Filipinos are no stranger to typhoons. We encounter them on an almost regular basis, monthly basis in fact. And during this particular period, yep, they're really getting it in there right now. And if you are a Filipino watching this video, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Bagyo doon, bagyo dito, which is why umbrellas and raincoats are always a good idea to have at home. Now, when we say the term typhoon, this refers to a weather disturbance that is generating winds or that can generate winds that go beyond 64 knots in measured speed. Now, this particular speed, once the wind speeds go past that mark, this weather disturbance can now be classified as a typhoon. And once this particular disturbance enters something known as the PAR, also known as the Philippine Area of Responsibility, that means this weather disturbance is our problem. And when this happens, the geological or the weather services group here in the Philippines, known as Pag-asa, releases storm warning signals throughout various areas of the country. It assigns various storm signals, usually determined by specific numbers. So the higher the number you get, the more severe the expectant damages, or the more severe the treatment or exposure to the typhoon this area would have. And if you've lived here in the Philippines for about a couple of months already, you'll notice that different areas get different storm signal warnings, which will then dictate if classes will push through, if government employees are still supposed to work, and if you can get a free day off. Now, when the various storm signals are assigned to specific areas, this is because different areas will have different exposures and different levels of particular threats to which they may be exposed to when the typhoon passes their area. Thanks to modern technologies, weather stations or weather services can predict with a certain amount of certainty where the typhoon will pass, where the disturbance will be passing, known as its trajectory. And when we say trajectory, this refers to where the typhoon is going to be after a certain amount of time. So if you watch your news carefully, the weather sections will always provide you when the storm will supposedly be on particular dates, and more importantly, when the storm or when the typhoon will be leaving the PAR, wherein it's no longer our problem, but somebody else's problem. So when a typhoon hits a PAR, or hits our PAR, our areas or our civilian areas are expected to take necessary precautions as brought about by the storm signals. And this is where typhoon coverage comes in, which is to be divided or separated from flood cover. You can have floods without a typhoon. Therefore, you can have a typhoon cover which is completely separate from your flood cover. With that being said, typhoon cover specifically targets against wind damages. Henceforth, the 64 knots requirement before a disturbance can be considered a typhoon. So what you're dealing here with is wind damage, breaking into your houses, breaking your windows, moving things about, and even wind carrying debris, which could hit, damage, and get into your property and cause further losses. This is what the typhoon cover is for. Strictly your wind damages. And with that being said, let's talk about the first interesting thing about your typhoon cover, shall we? If you remember the question I asked you at our intro, if a typhoon is designated to pass by Luzon, can a property in Mindanao claim for typhoon damage? If you take a good look at the question, that's a bit of a gray area, isn't it? The typhoon's up in Luzon. Why is a property in Mindanao going to be able to claim for typhoon damages? Can a typhoon reach that far? Well, the answer to that is yes. And yes to the earlier question as well. The property in Mindanao can claim for their typhoon damages even if the typhoon isn't passing their specific area. Because the only condition that the typhoon has to meet for it to be covered is that it is within the PAR, and it has been classified as a typhoon by Pag-asa. So when these two conditions are met, even if the property is nowhere near the trajectory of the typhoon, it can still cover damages. Isn't that interesting? Now, the second point that I'd like to share with you guys is the fact that if that a typhoon, although it passes at a specific time, from the date that it occurs, you actually have 7 days in which damages to your properties may be attributed to the typhoon that just happened. Now, this is similar to the other special characteristic of earthquake cover, which we discussed in the previous video. As you will remember, when an earthquake occurs, you can claim for damages that happen to your property within a period of 2 days from the earthquake itself. The typhoon cover has the same type of characteristic, but instead of having a cover period of just 2 days, which is 48 hours, you have a cover period of 168 hours, which equals to 7 days. So if your damage or if the losses to your property show up or occur within the 7-day period after the typhoon has passed, then yes, the damages can be claimable under the typhoon benefit. And again, same thing happens with properties that are nowhere near the trajectory of the particular typhoon. Now, isn't that handy? Now, the last thing that I want to talk about regarding your typhoon cover is that it is closely connected to the flood cover, which we talked a little bit about earlier during this video. Now, as we said, typhoon covers your wind damage, flood cover covers your water damage. Now, when it comes to wind damages, a lot of things can happen to your house. The wind could carry debris along with it, unsafe debris, heavy debris, sharp debris that could enter your household via open or broken windows and could damage the property inside, especially if the typhoon is really, really strong. Now, it is very important to note that in order for you to be able to claim the damage to the internal properties of your properties inside your property, that's redundant, to the things inside your property during the typhoon, it has to be that the external parts of your property are also damaged by the typhoon. In short, you can't claim for internal damages if the external damages if there are no external damages. Sorry about that. Let me make that clear. No claim for internal properties if the external is not damaged in the same process. So in order to claim for the things inside your house, and that could be your furniture, those could be your fixtures and fittings, it could be your appliances, so on and so forth. For these things to be claimable under the typhoon benefit, your external or the external portion of your property has to be damaged as well. And I do believe this is something very, very important for you guys to remember. Now let's talk about our word for today then, shall we? Now I got a doozy here for you. Let me just check my notes here. Our word for the day is, don't say this with me, renewal. Now, the term renewal comes along the time when the year ends or when the expected coverage time of the policy is about to come to a close, meaning the policy is about to expire. And when the policy expires, we insurance companies and agents provide customers with the opportunity to renew or to buy another policy to continue the coverage for the following year. For a more technical definition, the term renewal refers to the recontinuation or the restarting of a service or an activity after an interruption. In the case of insurance, that interruption refers to the expiration of your insurance policy. Now, when I hear people at the office say it goes renewal. Now, let's try to add some more schwas to that and a little bit more finesse. Say this with me. Place a schwa near the end of the last syllable. I'm going to show it on the screen right now. Renewal. Notice what I did there? The W sound in the middle of the word was directly connected to the L sound with a schwa. So, whoa. Can you say that with me? Say that with your Tito one more time. Renewal. Didn't that sound great? Thank you so much for spending your time with us again. Are you looking to buy insurance? Are you looking to sell insurance? If you are, please leave me a message, leave me a comment, leave me an email. I would love to hear from you. Also, please check out our other playlists. I've got playlists on motor car insurance, property insurance, and personal accident insurance at the meantime. And as a treat for you guys, I'm also planning to come up with a bonds playlist in the near future once I've got something going on with my property playlist. So do watch out for that. And once again, this is your Tito Miguel who says, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.